That is right, ladies and gentlemen. The playoffs are going on, and for one of our Union teams, it keeps going, but for the other, we're still at home and we still are talking soccer. But welcome, everyone, to today's edition of PHLY Union Podcast. Of course, I'm one of your hosts, JP Zapata, joined as always with the lovely Renee Washington and Andrew Frazier here as
Hello.
well in our nice little off-season edition. But if this was a Union 2, full-time Union 2, obviously we do mention Union 2 around these parts, but if we were a full-time Union 2 podcast, we'd be talking finals. We'd be all giddied up. We're still excited for it, but it's a little bit different because it is Union 2. But obviously, listen, guys, I want to start off real quick. Of course, we all know what today is, right, around the country. So we have to bring up this fun one, right? Vote for Pedroia. So for anyone who needs a little backstory for what this Pedroia means, a couple about back in 2019, Alejandro Bedoya, I believe this was for a soccer pitch announcement over in West Philly, and ABC, we love our friends over at ABC. They decided to give Alejandro Bedoya a new name. So make sure you guys are voting here today, and hopefully we don't screw up his name again because we're talking about a Union legend as well.
Oh
But
my
what's going
god.
on, guys?
Oh my gosh.
That's
It is
wild.
election day. It is election day. So I'm glad you brought that back up because it is fitting, especially given the day. Not to mention why, so many questions that stirs up again, still to this day. But yeah, it's a wild time right now because we're talking playoffs and none of it has to do with the Union. But the Union too, thank goodness, are giving us some excitement around postseason and some hardware that possibly could be won. So yay.
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 We like that. We like that.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's exciting. And it's also just like a nice, bright little spot for the future for this club, the
right.
Union, to see the success in the youngsters being able to pull it off, getting out there. And so, even though it might be a Union 2 game, maybe you don't watch the secondary club, you don't watch the younger guys. I highly recommend, tuning in and watching what they can pull off because obviously Cavan Sullivan is a huge headline for everybody across the world of soccer. To see him and his performance, and then just to see how these guys have been elevated the last couple of weeks. And it's really cool and really exciting. And I can't wait to watch.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's fun because look, we're always trying to integrate the Union into American sports culture and like kind of just like tying it into American sports culture here
Hmm.
in the United States with baseball, right? You're obviously like you follow your Phillies, you follow your Mets, your Yankees, your Nats, whatever it may be, but like the passionate baseball fan is also keeping an eye on what's going on in AAA and AA and Single A, even in the Florida leagues, and so
Yeah,
like it's cool to kind of integrate this into our game now, right? Like having your
Yeah.
youth academies and your youth teams being a part of your main team is important. I mean, it's a thing around the world, right? But with this Union team, we all know what the crux of the way they want to build the senior squad, and it starts with the kids, it starts with the youth, and of
of
course, a
course.
step below the Union is Union Two, and they're experiencing a really fun and exciting time. And obviously, we talked about it last week. The tragic news of Holden Trent. It does feel like they're playing a little extra motivated. So it is definitely really cool to see. And it's Philadelphia. It's got Philadelphia on the badge, on the crest. So we can all of us can get behind Union 2. It's fun. The baby snakes, guys.
I know, I know.
Yeah,
I was gonna say it is exciting because it is the future. You want whether it's minor league or MLS Next Pro or any other pathway that a league has, you want the secondary team to be successful because it does feed into not only your direct team, it could also be some possible roster acquisitions, trade pieces. So it just gives you an extra level of excitement for what the future can hold, especially with how well they're playing. And I
Mm-hmm.
was fortunate that I've
Oh,
uh-oh.
it's like, oh my God, is that on me?
You were messing with me earlier before we went on air, and now it really got you.
no, I know. Sorry, that is karma. That is karma because I was playing a joke on Andrew and I accidentally
Yeah,
stopped
you
my
were.
own microphone, and silenced myself. But I was gonna say when the Union 2 put up a beautiful 4-0 win over the Columbus Crew 2, I was fortunate that although I was not on the broadcast, I was actually in the broadcast booth next to our guest for today that'll be joining us later, Jack Edwards, who's been on 3 of their postseason games, including the Eastern Conference Final, and has been actively on the broadcast as play-by-play broadcaster. And here, like, I was like listening to the game because I was on my own game, and then I was able to watch the footage after, and they're clicking. I mean, it's exciting times, and the most recent time we can think of a team in a cup in a championship for the Union 2 years ago. 2 years ago.
Renee, that is right, Renee, and it's I think it's a perfect point to kind of move forward to. But yes, at 1:30 in about 25 minutes or so, we will have Jack C. Edwards to come on and play-by-play guy. Cannot wait to pick his brain of this Union 2 squad because I'm excited too. And listen, I'll be honest, full transparent, I haven't been able to watch too much of Union 2, so I love to talk to these guys and get the vibes, get the check over what's going on with our baby snakes. But yes, Renee. Oh, Renee, you brought it up, and it's important to talk about it today, and I'll bring up the play because this is extremely important for our conversation. But yes, ladies and gentlemen, today is the anniversary of this play that we will never forget in Union history. Gareth Bale in the 127th minute. What was that? 127th? Did I read that right? 100.
Yes, you read that right.
127th minute of the match. Holy crap! Gets the game tying. Well, I guess because obviously Jack Ellie scores the goal a couple minutes later, and then helps concede the goal 2 minutes later, and LAFC draw it 3-3. We all know what happens after that. We go into PKs, and of course, the Union aren't able to convert it. And I want to bring this up because, like, I know for a lot of Union fans, guys, when they think of this day, it's a really dark day. It's a day that people kind of like to throw away. But, like, I'm going to take you back to kind of like my day on November 5th, 2 years ago. Like, I woke up that morning and, like, I felt peace. Like, I felt this sense of peace with myself because I don't know what it was. But then as I head to Philly, I'm walking around South Philly. I watched a game in South Philly. I watched both games in South Philly, and Renee knows what the second game was. I watched both games in South Philly, and I'm in this bar, and, like, people were actually watching the MLS Cup Final. And, like, you guys know me, like, I love that type of stuff. Like, when Philadelphians are buying into the soccer team, like, I love that stuff. And so, like, it's like years and years of disappointment before that, right? So before 2022, it was so much disappointment. That the 2010 year through the 2018 year, it was nothing but disappointment. It all culminated in this. We were on the biggest stage of the sport in this country, and we were playing LAFC. And this was the moment that I waited for since 2010. And I kind of was like, whatever happens, happens. And it definitely, listen, I'm not going to take away, losing like that in that fashion sucked. Absolutely suck. But, like, if you're a soccer fan, if you're a soccer purist, you've watched the sport for a while. You don't just watch MLS, you watch your European soccer. If you were a Union fan and you saw Gareth Bale do exactly what he's done to clubs like Juventus and Liverpool, and you name the Bayern Munich, you name the biggest clubs in the world, Gareth Bale has done it against, and now he's done it against your Philadelphia Union. So, like, I know we all want that trophy here in Philadelphia. We want it in every single sport. But the fact is, we played in the best American soccer game of all time. No matter what league iteration, it was the absolute best. We went toe-to-toe with LAFC, which we all saw was a really good team as they won the CONCACAF Champions Cup the following season. And it came down all the way to PKs. PKs is a crapshoot. Anything can happen in penalty kicks, and unfortunately, it didn't go our way. But I don't think this day needs to be looked at as like a dark cloud, a dark hole, like a lot of people do. Look, I'm curious your guys' thoughts, but I think that we should rejoice and kind of remember that team because that was a special Philadelphia sports team in our history.
Yeah, I think it's funny that it's that you said it was the best soccer game ever played in North America. It's funny how Philadelphia always seems to be in some of the best championship games, whether it's the Super Bowl against Tom Brady or it's, Jalen Hurts playing against Patrick Mahomes and having one of the best performances ever. And then obviously right here, the Union losing in that game. And, it was a road to get there. The seasons prior to that, there was some unluckiness. Obviously, you win the Supporter Shield, you get all of that stuff. There were the accolades that they had, but they were just there. They were just getting there. They weren't to the top. They were climbing to the top, and it felt like every year they were always getting closer. And then they finally get there. And then obviously you have that game in the 127th minute. You're up 3-2. You would obviously think that that is a Union victory, and then that happens, the equalizer, and it's a stunner. It's a dagger. It hurts, but it's something that it's a motivator for the team. Hopefully, moving forward, that they can build off of, and obviously there's been some dreck this past season. But it's still a good point for us as the fans, as supporters of the club, to say, hey, there is some real success here. Whether or not they won or not, they have been successful in the last 5, 6, 7 years. They're showing up time and time again. And it shows you that although we have the troubles with the front office, we have the troubles with, how things are structured, there is winning in this club, and they just need to find that again. They just need to find that identity once again. They did it with homegrowns. They're always going to do it with homegrowns, and it just shows you that it's possible, that is something that they can do. And we just have to keep our fingers crossed. But yeah, I wouldn't look at this day as a dark day. Look at it as be optimistic and say, hey, we were there once, we can get there again.
Well, I love that, guys. I think I will be.
Is the Ice Queen coming in here?
I think
so.
I think I'm coming in hot, or coming in cold here, I should say. I think I'll be better able to look at this optimistically in like 10 years. I think right now, short term, when you look at November 5th as the day the Phillies lost, the Union lost in the World Series and the MLS Cup, of course, that was a part of the whole year of all Philly sports teams getting to their respective championships and losing.
Oh, it was a tough day, yeah.
It's something that from another sports market, they wish they had that problem. There are very few sports markets, and I know our resident LA fan, BC's in the chat, LA is one of those sports markets that's used to championships. The New England area, Boston, New England, they're used to championships. There aren't many areas. I mean, Florida had a stretch and DC both had a stretch where like all their teams were winning.
Chicago had a little stretch too with the Blackhawks and the Cubs.
I guess they've each had their moments where they're like, again, Miami had one with the Heat making a run to the finals, the Panthers, DC had it with the Nationals, Mystics, Capitals. So, there's been some that have had their stretches, but on a consistent basis, there aren't as many that are making a run deep into the postseason. I just also know, we all know, I should say, how hard it is to get back. So if they don't ever get back to that point, to that stage, you're going to look at that even more as a flop.
They will.
It's the same thing we're dealing with the Phillies right now. It's the same thing. I mean, the Sixers haven't even gotten back since 2001 to the NBA Finals. The Eagles have at least given us a Super Bowl and a Super Bowl run. So it's so difficult to get back. And I just, especially for the Union, when you had the lead, as you replayed that traumatic, triggering Gareth Bale goal, you had a chance and you left it up to grabs, because penalty kick shootouts can go either way.
Oh my God.
And happy for John McCarthy for that historic MVP performance he had, but it should not have gotten to PKs. And now looking back, the same issues that we saw plague them then, late game, inability to close out, still is an issue. So I'm happy for it, but I'm dying.
Oh no. Okay.
It's all right. That's all right.
Well, listen, Renee is gutting it out here. We do appreciate it.
I'm pessimist. There we go.
There you go. Well, Renee, I think that this is a perfect time because, listen, it is very difficult to win an MLS Cup, but it's also difficult to keep up with your finances. And that's right. We're going to talk about real quick about our friends over at TrueMark Financial. Like we talked about, it is difficult winning a championship. It's difficult getting to that stage, right? and it's also difficult to keep up with your finances, but we can make it easier with our friends over at TrueMark Financial. They're my favorite, right? Because listen, I just love that they have these new money management tools. We're all trying to keep track of our finances at this day and age. I'm gearing up for a nice little, I guess it's kind of like a staycation. I'm going to like the Reading area this weekend, so it's like not too far. It's like an hour and a half away. So, but it's a little bit of vacation. I mean, my wife and I are gonna have a lot of fun. We're out to eat, go out for some drinks and such like that. And after the weekend, things are going to catch up. So it's really helpful to be able to have even like the mobile banking app where I can check up all my finances and make sure everything is copacetic. Because listen, when you're making a lot of purchases on a trip, something can happen, and there are fraudsters out there, and they could steal your identity and steal your credit card information, such like that. So it's always nice to have that app to keep me on lock, and even making sure that I'm keeping up with my credit score. Guys, you need your credit score to be high, right? We want to buy that house, you want to buy that car, you need to make sure you have that great credit score. And of course, with TrueMark Financial, they'll be able to help you monitor that at all times. If you would like to start your credit union career, highly recommend doing it. You can do one of two things. You can either visit truemark.com/PHLY. That's truemark.com/PHLY. There's also 24 branches in the Philadelphia area. You can visit any one of those branches to find out more information, and you can start your credit union career right then and there. Keep in mind, TrueMark Financial is federally insured by the NCUA and is an equal opportunity lender. If you yourself would like to start your credit union career, make sure you guys check out our friends over at TrueMark Financial.
Okay, well, I think it's very fitting on this day that I have a cold that I can tell you about our friends over at Rite Aid, because with Rite Aid, they have all that you need to make sure you don't have to stress about your prescriptions. And when you need to get them refilled automatically, you can do that with Rite Aid by enrolling in their automated courtesy refills. They also allow you to schedule a vaccine. So if in fact, my mom just told me yesterday she went to Rite Aid to get her vaccine for the flu shot, because the CDC does recommend getting your flu shot every year to stay proactively ahead of the flu strains that are out there, the flu viruses that are out there, to make sure you can stay healthy. Not to mention, for any children in your lives, when you get the flu shot, it does actually decrease your chances of getting, for kids, a dangerous, deathly flu shot, flu virus, if you're able to get the vaccine. So there are some benefits to just protect you and your family. Not to mention, with their pharmacy services, you can get your prescriptions at the same time with one-trip refills. You can manage your prescriptions with their Rite Aid mobile app, and they have the convenience of knowing you can go in same day and get that flu shot, get that vaccine, whatever it is you're looking to do. Rite Aid has you covered. So if you want to transfer your prescriptions to Rite Aid today, go to riteaid.com/transfer. Rite Aid has the caring pharmacist ready to answer all of your questions and help you stay healthy. Get your prescriptions along with anything at Rite Aid, and you may also need, like myself today, and actually I have stocked up already, got the tea going, got the medicines flowing, took my Mucinex, took my over-the-counter medications, got my cough drops nearby, whatever you need in terms of medicines, household products, cosmetics, and much more. Just ask your pharmacy team for details. Some restrictions to apply, but thank you to our friends at Rite Aid for keeping us healthy, because the moment my throat started having that tickle, guys, I fortunately had already stocked up on my Rite Aid over-the-counter medications and went right into that medicine cabinet and started taking all the meds, all the things. So shout out to
We love
Rite Aid
that.
for keeping
Renee's
us
gutting it out. We love that.
You're pumped up on Rite Aid right now.
No, I am. It's getting worse just because this is show number 2.
Oh, yeah.
One, and actually it was pretty bad yesterday, so it's just been bad. But I'm just gonna pretend it's the fact that it's show number 2. But
so no talking from you for the rest of the day, I guess.
And it's sad, because I was telling Jamie and Tyler earlier, I actually think it's so cool when you lose your voice, but unfortunately, we work in a job where we kind of need our voices. But
yeah,
that's, I think it's so cool.
Part of the
okay, that's sure.
Yeah. I mean,
let me lose my voice.
I don't have any other issues besides like the occasional cough that I die, and then I lost my voice. But like, fortunately, I don't have major things, so it's like, knock on wood, I'm probably jinxing myself. It's not bad. I think it's kind of cool.
Well, besides the fact that now, we are part of the media, I do enjoy watching Union games in the Rivers End and singing and chanting. But again, I can't do that because in the next day I'll sound like that as well. And we do need our voices here.
Yeah.
And I don't lose my voice often, but
you don't. It's the first time I've ever heard you lose your voice, and I know you're always working too. Yes.
Yeah. I don't want to jinx myself, but yeah.
I'm loving this the BC coming in here with this LA love because I'll be honest with you, I was rooting for the Dodgers over the Yankees. And listen, we know the West is probably running through LA, or we'll see. We'll talk about that in a second. But I'm rooting for the Galaxy. I'm definitely rooting, especially this because I would if I have to pick one of the two evils, I'm picking LA over Boston because screw Boston. Honestly, easily.
I don't pick evils. No,
I don't
out,
pick evil.
out on either.
Somebody that hasn't already won before,
But
yeah,
can we be honest though? I don't want that either. Like I do enjoy some of the struggle because like if you guys think about it, would it 2017 with the Eagles winning the Super Bowl, would that have been as special if you've won Super Bowls constantly or championships constantly?
yeah.
What? It felt more special.
I mean, we don't have to struggle. We can win a few more championships.
Yeah, like I don't need a one and done, or
Yeah.
like one every 10 years. Like, pile them on. I don't care.
Nah, I don't want the Boston night. I don't want the Boston.
I love a good underdog. A good underdog winning a title. Like, I mean, Columbus is not an underdog. When they won last year, they had previous titles, of course, one being 2020. So we kind of look at that through a different lens. But I love when you get an underdog. I mean, we're tired of Boston and LA winning titles in every league. Like,
Yeah, no,
yes, I totally agree.
I feel you on that.
I totally agree.
Well, listen, in a couple minutes we're gonna have some Union 2 talks, which I'm excited to talk about with Jack Edwards about that. But I want to end on this conversation 2 years later because 2 years later, guys, we have reached what we think is the lowest point, right? You win Eastern Conference, you play in that crazy MLS Cup Final. And then people kind of like, I think people kind of forgot like that off season. So that off season was crucial, right? Like you need to reload into next season. You lose Paxton Aronson, you lose Corey Burke, who were integral parts of your bench, part of that depth that really was a big part of you being successful for the last 2 years before that. So you lose that, and then they really didn't have replacements. You bring Andres Pereira, which they found out after 2 months. Wait, this guy doesn't really fit what we do. We traded with Orlando, but I don't think this guy really fits. And then they go out and get Joaquin Torres. And I was excited at the start. And then, of course, he has the little spinorama against Columbus in the first match. But then that's it. You didn't really hear anything from him after that. And that was a big – it's honestly been a trendsetter because then you look into this past offseason, which Renee and I, we've dissected in every which way. I mean – you get Marcus Anderson, Yamir Bardicio, Oliver Zemla, Isaiah LaFleur, and poor Isaiah who goes on IR before the season even starts. But like this is the problem, right? So like ever since that team was stacked in every position, they had depth. And then the next two off seasons, they don't really reload. They don't really provide anything of substance. And you're relying on that 20. Think about that. Since that 2022 team, you were relying on that team up until Julian and El Brujo got sold. And this is kind of why we're at where we're at. We're watching the playoffs from our comfy couches, or we're celebrating you too, which they deserve their roses for sure. But I mean, you'd be lying to yourself if you wouldn't rather have a Union playoff run over a Union 2 playoff run.
Yeah, I'd like them to at least be a playoff team.
Yeah,
still.
And when you look at the last 2 seasons and like looking at last year's, the drought of a winless streak with all the ties at the end of the regular season, squeezing into the playoffs by the luck of just things working out. This team, the last 2 seasons since that MLS Cup run has been hanging on by a thread. It feels like it's been piecing things together, trying to keep the hopes alive, trying to make something out of nothing. And the reality is this does feel like a low point for the Union. This does feel like a rock bottom. And I just hope that they also in the front office are feeling this and not going to think, well, if we're healthy next year, well, if we're just better next year. No, because there's always going to be the overlap of the international calendar. There's always going to be injuries, and you have to prepare for those things. So when you look at some of these other teams, and I look at the players that are scoring goals, substitutions off the bench, I look at teams, how they're winning. It's not just they're 100% healthy. It's guys stepping up. As you're following the rest of the playoffs, it's teams finding ways to grind out results, and the Union aren't built for that. They're not built for the full season right now. So I do hope that as we are 2 years away from that November 5th, 2022 electric MLS Cup historic day, that this isn't kind of like, oh, well, this season is just a one-off. No, every season's been progressively getting worse since then. Of course, it's only been 2 seasons, but how many more do we need to realize that major changes need to be made? So from last year to this year, from 2022 to now, I should say, there's been major regressions with each season, and they have a decent core, but you have to make actual practical moves to help bolster this roster. You cannot continue to just run it back and hope things will work out. Every other team's making moves, every other team's spending money, every other team's adding talent, depth. The Union have to do that and more.
Yeah, and to also just to make note of, like, we are going into now a season, 2 upcoming seasons where there's a huge event that's going to be happening soon, and that is the World Cup. And these guys are going to be on international breaks left and right for qualifiers for different things. They are going to get worked, and it's going to be tough to try to build teams now. With such workloads that these guys are going to be seeing. And, this should have been, or how it should have been is like they should have started preparing for that now. Start finding those pieces now, not relying on the guys that have been there, who have gotten stale, who haven't really helped you, elevate this club. You should have been finding guys this past season, where you can start building into the playoffs, because come 2025, come 2026, it's going to be tough for these guys. It's going to be tough to find players. It's going to be tough to build a team around what's going to be a very, very exhausting 2 years.
Yeah, no, and it's crazy. Like, Renee brought it up. Like, guys, 2 years ago was not that long ago. Like, it feels like they were in the MLS Cup Final like 5 years ago, but it was only 2 years. And it's just crazy that now we're talking about them missing the playoffs in a season that was honestly mostly disappointing. Had some fun moments, but overall, it was an extremely disappointing season. And a lot of the downfall from November 5th, 2022 till now is that, listen, there was a lot of complacency. I mean, you can't sit there and say that there really wasn't. I mean, the front office, every time you hear them talk, it's always, talking about what they've done well. And yes, they've done a lot of stuff well, but unfortunately in sports, the way you get measured is your accolades. And there's no hardware in that trophy case. There's a supporter shield, and that's really it. And that's all we really have to hang our hats on. But like, yes, health in this past year, Andre missing so many matches definitely did not help. That was a big one. And of course, the tactics, that's the big one. Like, they have not changed. Even way before 20. This has been the same tactics since 2019. And like, I know it works on the most part, but like we talk about all the time, there just needs to be more tactical flexibility. A lot of teams are going to throw different things at you, and that leads into my last point: schedule congestion. When you win in this league, yes, that means that there's going to be other tournaments. Obviously, we'll see what the futures of the U.S. Open Cup, but you have the Leagues Cup now that's in play. That's a significant amount of matches. You have the CONCACAF Champions Cup, right? That's a big one, especially for MLS teams. We want to win that. And these are things that I just feel like the Union just did not prepare for. And so 2 years later, this is exactly what we are talking about. And of course, ladies and gentlemen, with all this talk's making me just a tad bit stressful, guys. So we need to take a quick second and cool off. And that's right, guys. We're going to do that real quick with our friends over at Coors Light, ladies and gentlemen. That's correct. Oh, man, I can't wait. Watching all these MLS Cup playoffs, enjoying it on my comfy couch. And listen, I do enjoy an adult beverage here and there. And of course, what we're going to be choosing is going to be Coors Light, because sometimes, look, I love craft beers, especially living in Southern New Jersey. Like, we have so many great craft beers to choose from, but like, they get a little bit too heavy for me sometimes. And I just want something a little bit lighter, something a little more refreshing. And there's just typically nothing more refreshing than an ice cold Coors Light, because when the mountains turn blue, they're as cold as the Rockies. Coors Light is cold lagered, cold filtered, and cold packaged for a much smoother finish. And when you embrace a chill mindset, it's a good time to choose chill. Crack open that Coors Light. Coors Light is a mountain cold refreshment, crisp and refreshing as the Colorado Rockies. And listen up, I know October is done, but November still has a good amount of sports. You still are full swing of NBA, NHL, MLS Cup playoffs are still going on. We have the NFL slate, college football, and college basketball is back as well. So what better than to choose a Coors Light to enjoy all these sports with? And you can get it delivered to your front door. You just got to go to CoorsLight.com/PHLY soccer. That's CoorsLight.com/PHLY soccer. And you can get it delivered straight to your home with our friends at Instacart. Celebrate responsibly. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado. Coors Light, ladies and gentlemen.
All right, let me tell you where else you can be responsible, and that's dealing with any aching joints, back pains, ankle problems, anything that you have going on. Rothman Orthopedic, they've got you covered. They practice specialized care, which has been their passion for over 50 years. And I can say from experience, after having gone to Rothman many, many times for my own injuries as an athlete, Rothman Orthopedics is fantastic. They help keep you feeling good and making sure that you can stay out on the field, the court, at the job, because every Rothman Orthopedic doctor has a specialty area: hips, knees, spine, you name it, they have a team for it. And they also cross over into some other areas as well. So with Rothman, they've got 200 plus fellowship trained physicians that have those subspecialties in specific areas of the body. So they can provide a multitude of orthopedic services. So in addition to their individual, the body parts, they can help around your wrist, your ankles, your hands, your feet, your spine. They have sports medicine, physical medicine and rehabilitation, orthopedic oncology, trauma and fracture care. They've got urgent cares, walk-in centers, convenient offices, all located dozens across the communities around Pennsylvania and New Jersey alone, 30 plus that they actually have. And they provide their patients with the knowledge of knowing if you need an x-ray, orthotics and bracing, MRIs, physical therapy, whatever it may be, Rothman year after year is providing you the great consistency and support to get that done. So they also perform amongst the highest volume of hip, knee, shoulder, and ankle replacements in the country at over 60,000. They also, in addition to that volume, 255,000 new patients and consults that they are proud to work with. It's their commitment that they have to improving each of their patients' lives through their service and care. And again, myself, I've needed them to make sure that I can continue playing soccer and stay healthy. And with Rothman Orthopedics, you too can stay healthy because they're specialized in orthopedics and you can visit rothmanortho.com/PHLY to learn more and to make an appointment today with our friends over at Rothman Orthopedics.
I love it, Renee. Awesome stuff. All right. Well, officially now, Renee, we are going to become, for the next 15 minutes, the PHLY Union 2 podcast. That's right. We're going to show some love to our baby snakes. So, guys, what an exciting match was this past Saturday, Eastern Conference Finals of the MLS Next Pro playoffs. And, this Union 2 team, they're just absolutely outstanding. So, as always, guys, we're going to get you guys eyes from a different perspective. Now, please welcome on in. He's the play-by-play broadcaster for MLS Next Pro, and he called the game on Saturday. Please welcome on in, dear friend of the show, Mr. Jack C. Edwards. Jack, what's going on, man? How are you?
Good. How are you guys?
Oh, dude.
Long time to see.
I know you guys are probably sick of each other.
Very much so.
Oh, wow. Thanks, Jack. Tell us how you really feel. Well, last time I saw you, Jack, I had a voice, so everything's changed a lot.
Things have changed.
Exactly.
Like a lot of things can change in 2 years. A lot of things can change in 2 days, Jack. So here we are. Well, listen, Jack, man, we were disappointed when the Union missed the playoffs for the first time since 2017. Like, the way the Union were playing, we were expecting this to be every year playoffs, deep run, and unfortunately, that's not how sports work, right? Things have to come to an end. But it's been a nice breath of fresh air watching this Union 2 team, and obviously we all know the Union well. It's all about development with the youth, and this team is just a lot of fun. So, Jack, I want to talk a little bit about the scenes on Sunday. What was it like down there at Subaru Park, man?
It was a lot of celebration. It was great that they were able to reorient the cameras to properly catch the atmosphere at Subaru Park, especially after the third goal from Frankie Westfield. He just kind of jumps up into the crowd. It was electric, to say the least. And going into that one, you guys, I know, have been talking about 2022, 2 years ago, and actually Marlon LeBlanc, head coach for the Union 2, talked to the team, showed them the video of them winning at Subaru Park to get to that final, saying, all right, this is your opportunity in front of your fans. And they took it. I think that was up to that point in their first 2 games, because I was able to call all 3 of their games in that playoff run this year for Union 2, that was their most impressive performance by far. It like everything clicked at the perfect moment. They won 4-0 over a Columbus Crew 2 team that in both of the previous seasons of Next Pro went all the way through the East, getting to the final. They were champions in 22, runners up in 23. So I think it was they fueled the crowd fueled that performance. They outshot them 24-1. It was one of the more comprehensive performances I've seen in a long time at the Next Pro level.
Yeah, I actually did enjoy, to your point about the camera angles. I was kind of like following alongside of the behind the scenes for producers down at Vista that were planning for the game, and they were saying, hey, let's flip the camera angles, let's get some crowd shots, let's make sure we can get all that. And thank goodness they did, because with an electric 4-0 win, and to your point, the way that they played, and I was telling JP earlier, I wasn't able to watch the game live, but I was actually listening to you calling the game, and I was like listening, watching through that. And this group, in honor of Holden Trent, it feels like they just played different and played with that, passion for showing their brother. Honestly, a great run, a great game, of great soccer. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on just the talent when you look at this team? So many people talk about Cavan Sullivan, but you mentioned Frankie Westfield, a Marcus Anderson. They've got so much talent. Neil Pierre, different guys, CJ Only throughout this roster that are really taking strides. Mm-hmm. And from one playoff game to the next, I'm curious, what did you see was the main difference? You said it was like their best game you've seen of the 3 alone. What did you notice as kind of that main area that they elevated in this Eastern Conference dominant win?
Mm-hmm. I think they had a very good job of winning all of their duels all over the field. They were outpossessed heavily, and they knew going into the game, Columbus liked to have the ball. Philadelphia liked to play on the break in transition moments. So they knew that it was almost tailor-made for who can play the game better. Both coaches saying it's going to be down to identity and who can impose themselves. I think it came down to that midfield 4 playing just absolutely electric. They had the same starting 11 for all 3 playoff games, trusted a group that has, I think it was 9 of the starters are academy products. And in that group, the oldest player is Nick Pariano, who's 21, playing as defensive midfielder. And it's his first professional season because he played at Duke in college. So it's not like he's tons of experience for him. So it's a super young group. You mentioned a lot of the great names. Frankie Westfield, I think, just continues to be unbelievably good in that left back role. And that's a role that he stepped into this season after playing as a right back previously. I think he's got a lot of potential to be bumped up to the next level in the coming years. Neil Pierre, I think his range of passing was the key for the only goal in the first round game against NYCFC2, got the assist for CJ Only. He had a very similar switch for the first goal against Columbus. And that's the kind of thing as a center back that I was really impressed with, where he's 6'5". He just turned 17. So he's got the physical attributes that are going to continue to develop. But when he's playing these 40, 50-yard switches, that's what translates to the next level. When you're able to break 10 players with just one pass as a defender, he's been the most impressive component to this run, in my opinion, Neil Pierre. CJ Only also, I think, has had the biggest moments. Scored in the first round, winning penalty, second round, assisted first goal in the match against Columbus. So I think those 3, Cavan will get a lot of the recognition as the 14, now 15-year-old. He scored a great goal, obviously, had a great moment. So that was big for him. I thought his performances were very good, Cavan Sullivan, but to have that playoff moment against Columbus was really important for him, I think.
It's a good point. And kind of on that point as well, for those who aren't avidly watching Union 2, you mentioned some players already, but like who maybe next year or the following year could you be seeing in the MLS level, not even for the Union, but maybe for another squad on this Union 2 team right now?
I think Frankie Westfield, they moved him from a right back to a left back to just develop his left foot, his weak foot, just help him for the next level. So that ability, being a good right back the last 2 years, and he comes in, moves to left back, and he's an MLS Next Pro best 11 guy. Has 7 goals, 6 assists on the season from left back. He scored if you haven't seen the goal he scored on Saturday, it's a great goal. And it shows he tries to put a cross in from the left with his right foot. It's blocked. He gets it on top of the area with his right foot and takes that shot. So a left back who's good on their right and their left, a lot of attributes there. Neil Pierre, I think at 17, he's still a little raw. I think it would be a bit of a rush to push him to the next level, but I think he's in the next 12 to 18 months. You got to be thinking about some MLS appearances, being around the first team a bit more. Cavan Sullivan, I have no idea what his trajectory is going to look like. He's still just 15. I love how much confidence he has at the next pro level. He's always calling for the ball. He's receiving it off defenders, going into either channel to get very involved in the play. So we'll see how he continues to develop. But I think CJ only, it's hard for me to project, not being a total expert on the first team outlook for Philadelphia, but I think CJ only always impresses me. I think his final ball capabilities are fantastic. He's got, I think, 10 assists this season. He had 9 assists last season. He's still just 18 years old. I think this is, for him in particular, is the individual quality. I've had them a handful of times this year, Union 2, every single time that he's on the field, and that's not to put down any other player. I'm always the most impressed with him and what he's doing out there.
Wow. Yeah, it's impressive to hear. I mean, again, they're still so young. So there's still so much physically, and then even just their understanding of the game, their awareness that still has to develop. And I'm curious for Cavan, because you have had a chance to see him in a Union 2 game where he's getting more playing time, more touches, more involved. He is one of the biggest names, of course, that people are talking about in terms of soccer in general, because there's just so much expectation for him. Now, obviously, having just turned 15, there's a lot of maturation that still has to happen in growth. What do you see, though, as the areas that are going to be key for him to learn? I mean, you mentioned it with is it a speed of play thing? Is it physicality? Is it, what area of his game, aside from just actually growing older, needs to mature for him to be ready to reach any of the expectations people have for him?
Yeah, I think next pro is a very good spot for him to be in right now, because it's such a mixture of players to play against. And Marlon LeBlanc described it for that first game against NYCFC2. I'm spacing the defensive midfielder for NYCFC2's name, but he's about 27 years old. So he's almost twice Cavan's age. Physically, just completely different person, because, twice as old as him. And so he's able to go up against a guy like him. And then the next game, maybe a guy similar to his age. The speed of play is definitely going to increase when he goes to the MLS level. And I think what I'm interested in is, how he handles the pressure that he's got on him, with second team. He's one of the go-to guys. He's trusted to take the ball in those key situations. When he's got the ball, I think the reason he had his biggest moment against Columbus was because he was able to get more space between the midfield and defense right on top of the box than he had in any of the playoff games up to that point. And that's where he scored his goal. The play was a bit broken. He got the ball in some space. He actually horribly missed a shot about 5 minutes earlier from a similar position, but then he gets another chance and he puts it into the back of the net. So I think when he's not that go-to guy with the first team, when he moves over to Europe, how does he handle kind of being on the outside of the game for large portions? Is he able to be without the ball, and when he gets the ball for a few touches in a match, because it's just so quick, so intense, is he able to make a similar impact? Or is it a case where at the second team right now, he's able to get so many touches, so much involvement? It's the percentage. Is the percentage going to be improving as he goes up? And again, he's still just 15 years old. These are things that he's going to work on in the next coming years, when he can legally vote, when he can legally drink, in that progression for him. So I think he's got a lot of, physical maturation to go. He's at a very good level for 15, but still some more to go in there as well, I think, as he continues to grow.
Absolutely. Hey, Jack, listen, the Holden Trent news was absolutely devastating for the entire Philadelphia community. He's definitely left us way too soon. And you can clearly tell that it's been one of the motivating factors for Union 2. Kind of want to hear you just kind of talk about like how he's kind of affected and how he's kind of motivated this team currently on the run that they've been on. Any quotes from Marlon LeBlanc or any actions, just the significance of Holden Trent's passing.
Nothing direct from Marlon, because the news came out of his passing just a few hours before the Crown Legacy match in the Eastern Conference semifinals. And they were able to have a brief moment of silence before the match, and they were able to have a few pieces of signage. I think the biggest thing that I saw was in the aftermath of that Crown Legacy game, because they had so little time to process everything that had happened and was going on. That match, they lead after a first half goal. They concede in the 88th minute. They go to extra time, and they had made subs, to kind of prepare to close out a win. And then all of a sudden late equalizer, you go to extra time, it goes all the way to a shootout. And then Andrew Rick, the goalkeeper, makes 2 huge penalty saves in the shootout win. And then just seeing, I think his reaction after that was very telling, how moved he was. I believe he had something on his wrist, honoring Holden. And it was, you talk about the youth of these guys in terms of a soccer aspect and playing a professional sport, but also in terms of a life aspect. So much to have to deal with for them. And I think it was very impressive to, in the immediate aftermath, come through with as professional a performance as they did. And then I think when they had time to properly process and not entirely grieve, of course, but in that week after, they put the performance they had against Columbus, which was utterly unbelievable. As good I've seen them play all season long. I think that's very telling, that when they were able to slightly begin to process how good they looked on Saturday.
Yeah, that is telling, especially we're talking about 15, 16, 17-year-olds. They're very young, and they're dealing with something that no one should have to deal with, to lose a teammate, a friend, a brother, and have to go out there and still play. You're finding out prior to warm-ups, you don't have time to even, as you mentioned, grieve properly. And you have to go out there and still play and still win, because you're in a Crown Legacy game. You want to get to the Eastern Conference Finals. And now, as they've had a chance to be named and win the Eastern Conference Championship, they are going to get an opportunity to face up against North Texas SC, who is a team that has been very good themselves. When you look at them having even the best overall record across MLS Next Pro, with their 16-4-8 regular season record. Their path to this point as well, going into the MLS Next Pro Cup, has been impressive in their own right. So going to be a very tall task for the Union in this game that's taking place Saturday. What are your thoughts on it? I know it seems like it should be a good matchup. What do you anticipate for this game in terms of the matchup, both teams' tendencies, and just overall what this MLS Next Pro Cup is going to entail?
I'm really excited for it. It's going to be a good one. North Texas, you mentioned, best team in Next Pro this season. And I think just the complexion of the rosters are very different. So I'm interested in how Philadelphia handles it. These are not exact numbers, but I pulled them together. The average age for the North Texas roster is about 20 and a half, compared to Philadelphia, 18 and a half. So a 2-year gap in terms of that average age. Again, I think 9 of the starters for Philadelphia were teenagers, right? Versus not much older, but an older North Texas team.
It's a big difference.
It is a difference. I mean, you think about how different you were at 18 versus 20. There's just a little change that happens.
Oh, yeah.
A little bit. And so I think North Texas are going to be as tough a test as Philadelphia have had all season. I don't believe they've played. I haven't checked on if they've played to this point this year, but they've got some great individual talent. North Texas do. Logan Farrington played a lot with FC Dallas this season. Carl Sainty, Herbert Endley have been in and around the MLS team in their early 20s. So again, guys that are older than the entire squads or entire starting lineup for Philadelphia. And it's a team in North Texas. They changed coaches. John Gall went up to the FC Dallas to be an assistant coach for the first team. They brought Michel Garbini, who's been with the team since 2019. He slides over. They continue to just win and mop the floor with everybody. They send a statement in their regular season finale. North Texas, they won 8-2, 8 goals to 2 against, I think it was Minnesota, and then advancing obviously to this point, beating St. Louis, the number 2 seed as well. So it's going to be a really good match. I think that it's one that both teams will, I think, like who they're playing against. North Texas like to control possession, dictate the way the game is played. Philadelphia, again, they love to play in transition. But North Texas, to their credit as well, are one of the fastest teams in Next Pro in terms of playing the ball forward and being on the break. So I think you would say going into it, North Texas might be slightly favored over Philadelphia, but Marlon LeBlanc talked before the Columbus match about how they've viewed themselves as kind of underdogs all season long with their age, with the fact they've never been in this spot before. They've got their first playoff win ever as Philadelphia Union 2 and Next Pro came earlier this season, and they've got now 3 on the trot And I think it's going to be a challenging one for them, but an opportunity, of course, to lift some silverware.
I love it. I love it. Well, listen, Jack, we really appreciate your time coming on here, man, giving us the lowdown here on Union 2. Are you going to be on the call?
I will not be on the call for Saturday. That will be another Indiana alum, Josh Eastern. He'll have Ricky Lopez Aspen with him, and that's going to be in North Texas. So that'll be a good one.
So what's next for you, Jack? Where do you go from here?
I've got I was on Season Pass last Saturday. I'm on Peacock, USL Super League this Saturday. ESPN Plus. There's a variety of streaming platforms you can hear me on. So
all right, well we'll have to keep an eye out for one of your next game that you call, man. But that's awesome. We really appreciate again your time here, Jack, and we'll catch up soon, hopefully for next year's MLS next season.
Indeed, appreciate the time, guys.
Thank you, Jack. That's it. That was awesome. Jack Edwards, ladies and gentlemen, play-by-play guy, MLS Next Pro, called the Eastern Conference final win for Union 2. And now they gear up for North Texas. I love it. All right, guys, how do you feel about ending the show with some playoffs? We're still talking playoffs here.
I know.
It's a little sad. It's definitely a little bit sad, but we're gonna catch you up to date with what's been going on in the 2024 Audi MLS Cup playoffs. Oh my God! Let's start with the Western Conference. Eastern's a little more difficult for us, right? But in the West, we have here Game 3. This is actually on Friday for LAFC and Vancouver. Vancouver with a 3-0 win in Game 2, and obviously LAFC won Game 1. So it's becoming a little bit of an interesting matchup there. Of course, Seattle took care of Houston, both on PKs. Very interesting. Yeah, I did not think I had Houston winning that one, so it's going to be interesting. It's funny how everyone remembers Seattle earlier in the year when we had that monsoon match, and it felt like Seattle was heading into disaster. But look, they're heading into the next round of the MLS Cup playoffs. So definitely kudos to them. Minnesota punched their ticket into the second round as well as they beat RSL in 2 games. Another upset here. Both in PKs. Minnesota, can they be the Cinderella story? It'll be interesting to see. And then, of course, LA Galaxy, BC's team. He already put it in here. Galaxy 3-1 over Columbus in the MLS Cup Final. But listen, Galaxy took care of Colorado, guys, on a combined score of 9-1 in 2 games. They did not come to play. They came to play, but to win.
Yeah.
So they'll be meeting up with Minnesota United in the semifinal round. So that means we got to go to the Eastern Conference, guys. All right, so starting off, can we be having another upset? This one would be the upset of all upsets, as Atlanta has forced a Game 3. That will be on Saturday against Inter Miami. Inter Miami won Game 1. Atlanta won Game 2. Game 3 will be interesting as it goes back to Fort Lauderdale. Will they pull it off? And then we have Orlando and Charlotte. That Game 3 will also be on Saturday. The Charlotte won Game 2 in PKs. Mm-hmm. Orlando won Game 1. And then, of course, we have Cincinnati and NYCFC with their Game 3 on Saturday, as well as NYFC won Game 2. And then, of course, this one got Renee excited. She texted us about this one. Red Bull upset special on the Columbus Crew? Are you kidding me? In 2 games? I don't know how to handle that. I really don't. Are they the team of destiny? I guess we're going to have to wait and see. But that one right there had everyone shocked. The Red Bulls game, nail biter. They played so well, though, against the existing champs. That's right. They beat the reigning champs in Columbus Crew. It was a good one by the Red Bull, I will say.
It was. I mean, I think the eye-opening thing for me, when you look at the teams that have already been eliminated, RSL, Colorado, Houston, Columbus, some of them we expected, but I don't know that anybody expected the Columbus Crew to get eliminated by the Red Bulls at this stage. I mean, you're the defending champs. You've been one of the best teams all season, and you get swept. You didn't get a Game 3 out of it. But I do think it's also intriguing. A couple things. One is some series like Miami and Atlanta have been very close for both games. 2-1 was the result for each. But then there have been others that it's been a drastic swing. You look at NYC, FC, and Cincinnati, 1-0, and then NYC wins 3-1. Or the fact that Vancouver was able to win 3-0 over LAFC in Game 2. Those wide open best of 3 ones that are now headed to a game 3, I have no expectation as to how that's. I mean, I don't have any expectation for any of the game 3s, to be honest. But to see the Red Bulls upset the Columbus Crew, a team that I love watching them play. If I had to pick another team outside of the Union, just their style of play, their build up. One of the biggest things that jumped out at me for that was just the grit, the fight. It was a back and forth game. It was dramatic. It was Christian Ramirez, 96 minute. Like this game was everything. It was wild. And
Right, Michael?
in the chat, yes, it just reminded us that anything
Mhm.
can happen in the playoffs. And once you get to a penalty kick shootout, anything really can happen. So if
Yep.
I'm in the playoffs, I'm saying we need to avoid PKs at all costs. Get it done in regulation, avoid penalty kicks, because that is a potential death sentence of just anything can happen. But my second and final point, because I don't know if that was 2 or not, that might be number 3 that I'm on, is when you look at Miami and their 2-1 loss to Atlanta. Guys, do you know who scored the game-winning goal in that game against Miami? I'll tell you.
Okay.
A substitute that came on in the 89th minute. Xandy Silva gives them the 2-1 win with a sub that came in the. I can't even get loud because I have no voice.
I thought you were going to say a Union player came out and scored the goals. Like, oh, of course
in
they
the
did.
89th minute to come in. Oh, Jesus. I'm knocking my mic. I'm getting excited, apparently. To come in
Seriously.
the 89th minute and get a chance to give them the win is something we talk about all the time. We highlighted it in that 2022 Gareth Bale game tying goal. The Union, we keep saying, where is that guy? Who is that guy? Because at this point, sometimes it's a reserve that comes in with fresh legs. Sometimes it's, it's your big time players, but you need those subs that can come in and make a direct impact. And that is why Atlanta has a chance to pull off one of the biggest upsets if they're able to knock off the top dogs in Miami. It'd be bigger than the Red Bulls beating the Columbus Crew.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be awesome. I love seeing underdogs. I love seeing the teams who aren't expected to win. So, I mean, we have 4 games that are like that right now. Vancouver, Atlanta, it's exciting to see, and I hope that they can pull it off. Because the Messi mania is getting a little tiresome. So it would be nice to see somebody, because then it's wide open. Anybody really can win. With Columbus losing, anybody really could win. There's no, obviously, got the LAs, both LAs are still in there, but if anyone can win, and I'm excited to see what the outcome can be of this playoff.
That would be absolutely insane. And I think I think I said this after the Phillies got eliminated from the playoffs this year. Like, you do need a little bit of luck in the playoffs. Like,
oh yeah,
these teams that go on runs, they have a little bit of luck on their hand as well. Like, if you watch that 2017 Eagles run, you didn't think that they had a little bit of luck, come on, there was some luck going on in that Atlanta game. There was a little bit of luck in that Super Bowl as well, but it is tough. Now, we criticized the playoff format last week with the 3-game. I mean, yes, but it's also been a big part of these results as well. I mean, that's really tough to beat a team twice and play best of 3. That is really, really tough. I mean, we talked about that Seattle and Houston matchup. Both games wound up being in PKs. Could you imagine that? Both of those games in PKs. It is absolutely insane, but it's something that you kind of have to plan for. You got to plan for, obviously you got to save your legs, got to save your players. It can be a best of 3, so you're playing 3 games, so you're stretching your players thin there. So it is definitely an extra wrinkle. Not a fan of it. Still not a fan of it. I just in general would like the MLS to come with a playoff format and just stick to it. This constant changing every year, every other year, every 5 years, it's getting too much, and people are not going to be entertained by the playoffs. That's when you should be making your butter, your money, all right, in the playoffs. Come on now.
They're making money with having so many games, and thank you to our diehards. We appreciate you. They're making money with having so many games and having 4 series that are headed to a best of. So of course 4 sweeps, but now you have 4 that are best of 3. Extra soccer, more money, and to John Peace's point, it does make it a little bit more entertaining because it is tough to play a team 3 times. It's tough to play a team twice, but definitely 3 times and tried to beat them 2 of the 3. So with all these penalty kick shootouts and late game goals that we've been seeing and comebacks, again, Atlanta was down 1-0. They gave up a 40th minute goal. They came back and won 2-1. These are the things that actually is going to help the MLS feel like they're doing something right with having these best of 3 series, despite our frustrations with them. I would love a best of 3. I don't mind a semifinal or final. I think that's a great time to have extra games. I just think these early rounds, keep it like an aggregate would be great. I think just having 2 games, I think is probably enough. Instead of having
I agree.
3.
Yeah, absolutely. Real quick to John, I don't want to ignore John Peace's other question earlier about the MLS Next, but MLS Next Pro, there are no age restrictions, but it is a development league. So I mean, if you're like 28 years old in that league, I don't know how much it's really going to benefit you, but it is for the youth, it is for development. But they do not say no to any player of any age. So 2 games is more than enough, says BC. Absolutely. All right, guys. Well, listen, that's going to do it for this week's edition of PHLY Union Podcast. Next week, we'll have more playoff games to talk about. Hopefully, we have some news to talk about as well. Obviously, guys, we're in our offseason currently, but we're going to get closer to the actual offseason kicking off for every team. So thank you so much for watching, guys. We truly, truly, truly do appreciate it. Make sure you guys are hitting that like button. We truly appreciate that. Subscribe as well, not only for this show, but we have great shows all across the board for all things Philadelphia sports, everything PHLY sports. You can also you can check out our podcast. We repurpose these into podcasts, so you can listen to it wherever you are. For Andrew Frazier, Renee Washington, of course, I am JP Zapata. Ladies and gentlemen, we will see you next week. And as always, Dupe on, Philly. Dupe on.
We all silly like the mayor.